Welcome to the 39th episode of Renegade Marketers Live, a show that promises to be long on marketing insights and short on overhyped buzzwords. We'll be drinking in the latest tactics and the coolest gin. Yep, this may be the only live marketing show that also features a gin tasting. This show is being live streamed via our friends at Restream, and if you want to drink along home today, we're tasting Malfi and New Amsterdam Gin. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. In his seminal book, Good to Great, Business Guru, I know that book's back there somewhere, so see if you can find it. Jim Collins identified that a great leader's first priority is getting the right people in the right seats on the bus, even before you figure out where the bus should be going. Great leaders assemble great teams, and most CMOs will agree that they are only as effective as the teams they build. Which is why at every award ceremony for marketing, you'll always hear the CMOs say, and I want to thank my team. And it's not a cliche, but it's with most things marketing, it's just not that simple. First, hiring experienced direct reports has never been harder, especially if you're looking for a head of marketing ops or a head of product marketing. Second, given all the roles that marketing can play, figuring out the optimal org design is a challenge for even the most experienced CMOs. So over the course of 4 huddles in December, we reviewed org designs of dozens of huddlers, and not surprisingly, no two were exactly alike. Some of these variations reflect the company's target markets, while others the priorities or biases of the CMOs. So on today's episode, we're going to tackle brewing a strong B2B marketing team, looking for tips and tricks that you can bring to your organization. With that, let's bring on Melissa Goldberger, CMO of SafeBreach. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Drew. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? And where are you?
I'm actually in Palm Beach, Florida. So yeah, one of the only positive effects, right, of COVID moving.
There you go. Although it's going to start to get a little toasty down there.
It's a little warm. Today's a nicer day, but it was a little hot this weekend, a little humid.
Right. We'll see. All right. Well, I'll call you in August, but now
I'll be up north.
Smart. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and noticed that you actually started your career in the United Nations, and I'm pretty sure that's the only CMO I know who did that. Can you talk about that experience and relate to maybe how'd you end up in marketing?
It definitely was not where I thought I was going to be after college. I thought I was going into the foreign service. I'm going to save the world. Got my job at the UN and basically was tasked with creating 9/11 had just happened. There was funding around bringing a program called Global Classrooms into inner city public schools. So I was tasked with starting our New York program. So it meant everything from recruiting teachers in public schools who were like, I have enough on my plate. I don't think if you remember No Child Left Behind, that was probably, all they cared about was the tests. And we had to bring over 1,000 students into this program, and we had 2,000 our first year. And my boss said, well, now I need that in my 3 other cities where she had other consultants. Over 5 years, we grew to 26 cities. It was a
Wow.
pure marketing play it was mostly marketing to the public schools, the teachers, and the foundations. So it taught me not only the B2C side, right, of working with the teachers, but the B2B side, because we were also integrating with partners. We had our funders, and I spent my first half of my career in nonprofit. Like, what a crazy ride is that to be a CMO, to say.
Right.
But
Yeah. To go from the UN to UN nonprofit and then nonprofit to very much for profit. So let's talk about, fast forward to your role at SafeBreach. Can you kind of provide an overview of your team structure, how many direct reports you have, and what areas they're serving?
Yeah, so our team structure, I'm reporting into the CEO. We total, as a team total right now, we're 13, though we have 4 more open recs, and we're going to be 20 by the end of the year. I have 6 direct reports now, and it's pretty much your typical, right? We're heavier right now in content and product marketing because we have a huge gap there. Demand gen, we have head of SDR, global marketing because we have a lot of expansion happening, as well as my favorite one to hire, marketing ops, and is to your point the hardest.
Yeah, man, I'm imagining. I mean, when I love the optimism of saying, okay, we have 13 now, we're going to be 20 by the end of the year. What we're hearing in huddles consistently in the last 2 months is you make 3 offers and you could get acceptances, and then people turn you down. I mean, it's crazy. So just hiring 7 people between now and the end of the year will be heroic. But let's so. Um, and when you think about your structure, what are you feeling good about? What's working pretty well?
I think just the overall collaboration and alignment with sales. Our structure is really aligned to the growth of our sales team. I know that horrific hiring right now. When I came on board in August, I had 3. It was myself and 3. We had 6 sales reps. Our sales organization grew from June 2021 to today. It is now 40 with 20 open recs. So we have to make sure that we're aligned. Whatever I'm bringing in and the team is going to be aligned to deliver. We're very sales focused and very customer focused organization. And every position I think of is how many reps is it going to be to a field marketer? How many reps for my content folks? Because we have to be 4 steps ahead. We have to enter market 6 months ahead of time. So I have to be looking really far out with our CRO. And that alignment has been huge. And also internally within the team, just creating those interactions. We don't have silos on my team. I hope we can keep that as we grow. I mean, I've had larger teams. When I was at Argyle, I had 40, and we still managed to break those silos within different cross-functional projects. So I'm hoping we could still keep that. But, you know,
So
that's
I really skipped over the fact that the SDRs report to you. Those are sales development reps, as if for anybody who doesn't use that particular grammar. And not every CMO has them do that. I think it's a great idea because then those folks have to get from what looks like a lead and really make it into something that sales will to run with. But it's a different breed of folks.
Oh my God. Yeah. And to your point of those accepting roles and declining, SDR used to be we grade when we have to hire and how long we think it'll take. SDR, I could usually fill super fast. That's where I had a harder problem with that than product marketing. My product marketer, I brought her in 6 weeks. She's fabulous. And my
Wow.
SDRs are amazing. It took fine tuning. And I know we'll maybe discuss a little bit later. It definitely took some fine tuning to get those offers for people not to reject them, of me actually showing comp plans in the second interview and me interviewing. Normally, I wouldn't interview an SDR. They have a manager. We have them meet with someone in sales, a peer. But we found having me interview them really got them excited about their future and which directions they can go. And also being honest about what this role is and isn't. Like, listen, it's a lot of digging. It's finding that, needle in a haystack. And I'm really proud of our SDR team. They're amazing, and it's a newer team for us.
And it's interesting. You said a couple of things that I just want to put punctuation points on. The fact that you're doing the interviewing, the fact that you're road mapping with them, and compensation is like out crazy. So you got to be upfront with that in terms of competitive salary. So all of those things have come up in huddles quite a bit lately. But again, I think the the notion that there's a career here for you, or at least there's more than 6 months for you. Um, so let's see, we've covered that. Um, what kinds of things have you done to help your team work together more effectively in the last 6 months? Because I'm imagining it's remote, and this is really the challenge. It's funny. I was listening to a gentleman the other night who is a managing partner at a huge PE firm, and his statement was, "Look, retention is about staying and working with people that you like, but you can't get people together. So how are you creating those bonds?"
Well, I mean, we definitely, and we probably have too many meetings. I will say that there's definitely a lot of meetings remote. And it's really stepping out of the way and then let each individual own certain areas and even areas where I may be having a gap. I'll tell you, it's funny. If you had asked me 10 years ago, I was the most organized, your best project manager, like on top of everyone. I used to stay, I had this one boss. I was like, I will never be that all over the place. I am that all over the place right now. But talking to someone on my team and letting them know that I need their help to lead our weekly project management, to take that, to own that, and to bring those discussions together. So we have the team with quick stand up on Monday. We have a strategy meeting on Wednesday, and that one is my meeting. And that's it. And being respectful of their time. We do get together. I mean, I'll be honest, we've brought in a lot of new people to our team, and we did have some hiccups bringing some new people in right off the bat. And right when they were what I call a firecracker, before it's an explosion, we were able, first on Zoom getting together. Okay, what are the challenges? How can we break this down? And we were fortunate enough where we all did go to Sunnyvale. We all sat together as a team and we roadmapped the next quarter's marketing plans together, the entire team. And we just actually had our sales kickoff 2 weeks ago. Fortunately, 200 people, and we all managed to be together. So we're really fortunate right now in this time that we've been able to be together a bit.
Yeah, and I think that, besides the momentary, sort of COVID spike that we're all seeing, and I feel really bad, a CMO that I know, brought, their team together, and sure enough, that individual had COVID and was mortified that, they might have given it to their team. So it's a
Oh
tricky
yeah, no, we
moment.
have to. We do a lot of testing. We joke no one tests more for COVID than our teams,
Right.
or even our SCO. We had someone on site doing on site testing for us. It
Yeah,
was a
that's
little
smart.
much.
Yeah.
Killed my budget.
Yeah, I know, that's hard, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, we're gonna come back, but right now we're gonna bring on James B. Stanton, CMO of Empyrean. Hello, James, how are you?
I'm doing well. Drew, and yourself?
I'm doing great. I see we are of the standing, folks, which I think is awesome, because you can always tell of the people who are standing because their head is, like, right at the top of the screen, but so I was looking at your LinkedIn profile again, and I noticed that you got an MFA from Parsons and I think invented laser light musical instruments. That's kind of cool. What happened back then?
You've been stalking my LinkedIn profile
I
again.
have, searching the world for something interesting. What talk about that?
Yeah, no, that's reeling in the years a little bit there, but yeah, I had an amazing experience at Parsons, and I am a musician. And one of the areas that I investigated, this was a digital degree, and one of the areas that I was investigating was laser light control and wavelength and the correlation between sound and digital and wave and all these kind of things came together. And yeah, I created some pretty interesting instruments that allowed the user to control how laser light moved through different types of plastics and things that you could see. And then it was all connected through to these sound boards, right, that would trigger sounds on and off. And as you can see, that was a very direct correlation between what I did then and now leading a B2B marketing team selling HR technology
Absolutely.
software.
All you're doing is you're just sort of, instead of laser light, you're sort of using your mind meld techniques
That's right.
to
That's
get
right.
your team to orchestrate, so to speak.
That's a
Uh,
word I like to use a lot.
there you go. And I can't help but notice that there is a guitar. I think I see the neck of a guitar back there somewhere.
Yes, there is. I've got a guitar over there, and then I get a lot of grief for the lute that is over my other shoulder.
There just aren't enough lute players. So anyway, so let's get back to 2022. Give an overview of your team at Empyrean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the numbers, I have 7 direct reports. Our total team here is of 15. This is a team that I've had the pleasure to build since I joined Empyrean in October of 2020. So, right in the heart of the pandemic. And beyond the numbers and the org structure, I'd be happy to talk about that too. But my goal in creating a team is to create one that's highly energized, very collaborative, and that can create and do amazing things together. And as a shout out for anyone on my team that might be listening, I mean, I am so lucky and thrilled and humbled to have such an amazing and talented team of people that I get to work with. And interestingly, we've really worked hard together as we've created this new team. Marketing is a newer function at Empyrean as we've envisioned it now. And we've worked really hard together to create what we kind of call a marketing microculture. And we've even defined something that we call the Empyrean marketing way. We actually, for those of you that are fans of Simon Sinek, we took that same approach to how we defined our culture with our why, our how, and our what, right? With our why, it's our mission statement. It's our purpose and belief as a marketing team. Then how we go about doing what we do and what we bring to the table to accomplish what needs to get done. A theme that runs across all of that is accountability. And we talk a lot about that, right? Having accountability to each other, accountability to the organization, accountability to ourselves. And what's been really important for me and for all of us on the team is to create, you may have heard this mantra before, but clear roles and common goals, right? I like it because it rhymes, but it also works really well when thinking about how to set up a team and an organization. I've found that some of you might relate, we marketers, we tend to be yes people, right? We're the folks that are always there to get things done, and we take a lot on. And that can get really challenging if we all end up taking on projects that have too much overlap and overlay with what each other are doing. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we're clear on what we're responsible for, and then how we work with each other to accomplish what we take over the finish line. So I'm not sure. I may have deviated, Drew, from exactly.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, and I'm just going to make a couple of punctuation points. One of the things that you really is important as a CMO that I have observed is providing air cover for your people. And so you've got to be the one who says no to things. And so you've already covered the importance of priorities and accountability. And so you can't simply, the thing that's so, there's always an infinite number of things that you can do. And sales will always ask for yet another presentation or a custom thing or something like that. And if it's not on the plan and you're not all working on it together as part of the thing, it's just, you got to learn to say no. And it's funny, one CMO in Huddles mentioned, he's got 7 different ways of saying no, which I think is brilliant. So when you think about this real quick, it sounds like a lot of things are working really well, but I'm a little concerned for you. 7 direct reports is a lot. Like, I think it's kind of one too many, and I'm just sort of curious how you decided on that number.
Yeah, well, I think that for me, I like to have a flat organization, right? I tend, when I put out org charts and use them in a strategic way, I tend to put out a circle, and kind of my role is the line in between everybody, holding folks together, creating direction, reducing and removing friction. And I do like to have a personal connection and a hand in all that we're doing here, we're accomplishing here. It is, a large number, but what I've also been able to create here, again, with that kind of culture of accountability that we all strive towards, I have a team of experts, right? I have people in my direct reports that are all able to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Largely on their own, right? Filling in gaps that I have, right? Certainly, I'm not an expert at everything by any extent. And so I see my role in working with all these folks is to make sure that, to borrow the word that you used earlier, right, that we're orchestrated, and that we're all working against, we use OKRs here on the team, right? So that we all are aligned on our objectives, and everybody brings those to the table. And that's how I found that, again, keeping a bit of a flatter organization, I feel allows me to be a bit more effective. But you're right. I have a lot of one-on-ones every week.
Well, and I was going to say that's where it really sort of runs out. You just run out of time because you're career mapping. But the punctuation point I want to put on this is, as a CMO, particularly if you're new and you're going in and you've been told, hey, there really wasn't a demand gen function here. We haven't really worked. It's been a sales driven or product driven organization. And now we want to, get marketing in the forefront. One thing that you mentioned is team of experts. And I'm going to stop there and say, as a CMO, if every one of your direct reports really knows that area, you have a possibility of managing your time. of actually, because one of the expressions I love that was used in one of the huddles was, you can't outwork this job. You simply can't. So you got to get team members who are really good. And so, the first order of business is going in and just building a layer underneath you that can do everything they need to do in their area. So that's a very cool thing. So, are you back at the office or hybrid or remote, or what are you doing in that space? Wait.
Yeah. So when I joined, as I mentioned, right in the thick of things of COVID, I joined remote. The team was also partially remote already, but a few other folks were out of our headquarters. And what was important for me joining is I really actually wanted to create a team of the best people that I could find, no matter where they were, right? Back to that team of experts. So that meant that I had to be geographically unbounded, regardless of the pandemic, to be honest. And my manager, the chief strategy officer, was very supportive, right, of that. And so, we have created a remote team. We got folks all over the country. We do have a very structured way of working together, though. We are we are an agile marketing team. So we meet on Mondays and do our commits. We meet on Fridays and do our completes. Very different style of meeting and tone, as you can imagine, each one of those. And then during the week, we all work off of a Trello kind of Kanban style board, which has been a fantastic way to keep everybody who's remote, all of us being remote, together and on the same page, and being able to tap help when we need it, and share and have accountability, and get to the finished project in manageable chunks.
Awesome.
But we do get together. We've been calling it our marketing residency. We pick one of our offices. And we get together. We've been averaging, with pandemic and, some COVID scaring, and Melissa, I hear you on testing and being worried that we've had some outbreaks. But we try to get together. My aspiration is quarterly, or really 3 times a year. And those are awesome moments, right? We come together, we have some fun. And we also use that time to think way more expansively, to really let the creative juices flow. And as one of my team members said recently, I think getting together at this rate is enough, because if we got together more often, we wouldn't have enough time to get done the things we actually come up with, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't miss each other. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's thanks for all of that. Let's welcome Jamie Walker, CMO of Keyfactor. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Drew. How are you?
I am doing great. Now, so where are you?
I am in sunny Atlanta. Sunny, warm, soon to be very hot Atlanta.
Hotlanta is
Hotlanta is everyone who's not from Atlanta calls it Hotlanta. I realized a few years ago when I moved here.
Yeah, well, and for a good cause. But so again, I was sort of plumbing your LinkedIn profile and noticed that I think your first 3 jobs were in sales, and I can relate to that. Having I sold encyclopedias door to door 1 year in college, and the year before that I sold Time Life books over the phone. So I get it. I'm just wondering if you think having been in sales made you a better marketer, and if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, so coming out of college, I was your typical athlete who had never worked. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I ended up in sales, and I I did carry encyclopedias, but I did have a bag where I was selling insurance and door to door in rural Vermont. So I definitely think that teaches you to have some thick skin. You hear no more than you hear yes. And and it also teaches you to live by a number. And so I guess at the time I didn't realize that in my early 20s, but now very much later in life, I realize I can respect what the sales team and each individual goes through on a monthly, quarterly basis, and having to meet a number to sustain their livelihood. So I think it has taught me a lot to understand the other side of the story, especially now being in the B2B world and working with my head of sales and understanding his team and what they need and how we need to support them.
Oh, I love the live by a number. I remember distinctly our sort of coach who would drop us off at some apartment building complex and said, you knock on 100 doors, you will sell at least one. And then that was, right? That was 1 out of 100 you'd sell, and you could do that in a day. And then the other thing that I thought was hilarious was the expression no callbacks. And this was one, I just have to share this. So one time, you go in there, you get everybody all excited, they're ready to do it. And they say, but can you come back tomorrow? And so, our manager said, there are no callbacks. You either sell that moment or don't. And of course, the next day I go and, they wouldn't open the door. So no callbacks. Anyway.
That's funny. I think about that now, Drew, when I'm on calls with vendors trying to obviously get me to purchase software. I'm always like, I need to think about it. But at the same time, it brings me back to the days where I never wanted to hear that from someone.
Exactly. Because it really means no, not now. It's not important. I gotta go. You're not on my, so it's hilarious how those things stick with you. So talk a little bit about your structure of your team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now there's about 14 of us on the team. By the end of the year, we'll hopefully be up to 16. I've recently hired 5 people. So I've gone through a crazy Q1 of bringing on 5 new roles. So I feel like it's been quite a journey. I was hearing kind of about the direct reports and some of the other CMOs that are here today. And right now I have 6, but I'm so happy to say in exactly 30 days, I will have 4 because I have finally landed that my VP of Growth Demand Gen role. So that was a huge blessing for me to be able to find a little relief for the team. But a lot of positive things going on at Keyfactor right now.
I want to hear them. What's working?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of grew by 100% over last year. I have a new team over in Stockholm. We've hired an EMEA lead. We're definitely have a strong global presence. So, business as usual has changed. The way that our team is structured, the way we communicate, the way that we get together has all changed since I've been at Keyfactor. I think similar to other people, I started in the pandemic. I came on, we had a small team. It's been growing. And we've had, the challenge of growing in a way. We always grow. We're aligned with sales. So that's going really well. Our numbers, we're always meeting them. But you have to really focus on how is your team growing as you add more people? How does that team dynamic change? How does the communication style change? How do I, as a leader, need to, where do I insert myself? Where do I back off? So I have invested heavily on just really focusing on building the team, but from a place of understanding the personalities and communication that needs to happen, bringing in, executive coach. I brought in an executive coach. I budgeted this year so I could have someone that could really help us focus on what does it take to sustain. And I say sustain because I have a very functioning team right now. Everyone is high performing, but as you grow and as you add new personalities to that changes. And so it's about understanding everyone's role, which I think is what we do by nature as leaders, but also understanding like how we need to work, what are operating principles as a team, what are our goals internally for being able to grow and sustain the demands of the business that we all know as marketers we get day in and day out, but also making sure we're cohesively moving in the right motion.
And I think it's so interesting that you have, so here's your team, you're describing everything's really working and you bring in an executive coach while things are good. I first of all, I admire that. I'm wondering how was that greeted by your boss and how did you package and position that? Because I think a lot of CMOs would love to do that, but don't necessarily know how to argue for it.
Well, I didn't have to argue for it. It was a coach that worked with some of our executive leaderships and team, so she was already well established in the organization. And I just had built my case. I had said, "Hey, we went through an M&A. There's a lot of change that happens in an organization, let alone marketing, and I'm about to bring on a lot of new people, and we have a big year ahead of us. And to do that right, I want to sustain. I want to keep our positioning of where we are today." I didn't have to fight for it. It's my budget. They said, "Okay, sounds good." And I just make sure that I talk to my boss and say, "Hey, here's what I'm working on with X person in this group." And everything is, I feel like as long as the numbers are met, everyone's open to a conversation about what happens after that.
I'd be remiss, and because you mentioned early on, and I just sort of skipped over that you were an athlete. What did you play?
I played basketball.
Yeah.
Basketball.
Got it. At the college level?
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, I literally never worked a day in my life until I graduated college. All I had to do was play, and it felt good at the time. But when you go into the workforce, I remember I was at school. I have a psych degree. I got a human resource management certificate. So I thought I was going to get into human resources, and I couldn't even get an entry level job. So that's kind of like your path is but it all makes sense because I could never picture myself in human resources.
Well, and I just want to I want to do a shout out on this because, one of the things I've gotten to know over the years is that college level athletes who also graduate with their degree, who may or may not, have sights on playing professional, have to be so organized in order to, because it's a full-time job being a basketball player or a football player and being a student. And so you have a full, you don't have a life. You got to be really, really organized. Do you see yourself sometimes going, well, God, I did so much more at college? Because did any of those skills that you learned in terms of time management, you think they're paying off for you now?
They must. I actually have never correlated those two together, but I think back on when I was in college and I had full course load, traveling, practices, early mornings. It was just kind of what I knew. And I think that has created the person I am, of how much you can balance and how much you can withstand. And so everyone, even, now at this point in my life and in career, and my team looks at me and they're like, "Jamie does it all." I'm like, well, this is who I am. I don't really feel like I do it all, but between work and family and all of that, it's just kind of what we do as people. So I do think that it's a part of who people are, and generally who get to that level. There's a mindset to get to that level, to play a college sport and kind of be that immersed. So I think there's a mindset part of it that is definitely carried over with me, and probably is a big reason of where I am today. But I hadn't really thought about it, Drew, until you mentioned it.
No, I think, I think college athletes get a bum rap sometimes. And I'm just so impressed by so many of the ones that I meet. They're so much more organized and accomplished and goal oriented, and they're competitive. And those are all really good things. And, oh, by the way, college, women's, there are 5 people, all of you matter. It's a team sport.
Exactly. It's a team sport. 100%.
It's a team sport. Okay. As much as I like to talk about this,
yeah,
I talk a little bit about, before we sort of take a break, what kinds of things other than the coach are you kind of doing to help your team work as a team?
Yeah, I think yes, absolutely. So like most people that are kind of here chatting today, having a team, we're remote, we're global, we're all over the place. And so the business at Keyfactor in general is really great of allowing us to move as we feel comfortable, as you feel comfortable traveling. We have all hands meetings, monthly in all locations. So one thing that I have done, and I allow the team to do, is we kind of pick places where we're going to meet as a team around those all hands meetings. So that's one way we do it on a monthly basis. Again, it's a choice. It's not required that you go, but if you want to have human interaction and want to see someone you see all day on Teams, any other given day, you can go and meet, and then we have dinners around that. Right. The other thing that I did, which I think it was more around the timing of bringing new people and having a global team, is we had our first marketing kind of global kickoff here in Atlanta back in March. And so, the goal, similar to what James was saying, is like, yes, we want to have fun, but it was around aligning around strategically. We have, 5 new people. We're already marching to our orders as a business, as we're, already basically through Q1. How do we ramp people up? How do we get people to break bread and just build that trust? I think that's a really important piece of it, is building trust with your teammates. And so it was a 2-day, pretty packed 2-day. We did a virtual wine. We did a wine tasting with one of the, I forget what it's called. Is it Sabre, where you kind of like take the champagne bottle off with a sword? We did one of those things.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we just made sure we had fun and had, we worked really hard during the day, and it was an opportunity for the team to be able to talk about what they were working on, but it was also a chance for us to talk and for me to set the stage of, what is their role in the business and what is everyone's role and how we're in this together, and, the commitment that I have to the team and that each individual has to each other. And it was just really powerful. And I think that's, again, it's the breaking bread and having wine goes a really long way when you do it often.
It really does. And I'm just going to say this for everyone. The connections that your team make and the bonds that they feel will determine how long they stay at your company. Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to plug CMO Huddles for a second and tell the audience a little bit about it. So launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is an invitation-only subscription service that brings together elite B2B CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. We're asking for like 1 hour a month to give you 10 back in smarter, faster, better decisions. We don't know another CMO peer group that's actually delivering on the level that we're talking about here. So check out cmohuddles.com. And I want to bring, Melissa, James, Jamie, you're all huddlers. Some of you are more new to it, but feel free to share your experiences with CMO Huddles. Anybody want to share something? Volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
Good. Thanks, James.
I'm a bit newer to this, as you know, but it's been great, and it's a safe place for sure. It's also I've found incredibly helpful just to hear about some of the same problems that I'm having and some novel approaches and paths to success. And even if you miss a meeting, Drew, the great write-ups that you do, some of that has been helpful for me, and even justifying some of the things I'm trying to accomplish here. So I've used what I've learned to, talk to my CEO and get justification and dollars for things I'm trying to do. So yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome. Okay, Jamie, Melissa, anything you want to share?
I mean, I'm gonna ×2 that on James, because I would agree. For me personally, I think I'm a bit newer, and so I struggle sometimes to always make the huddles. But the email that Drew sends behind it is amazing. I always kind of search back when I have a topic and I'm thinking about. I search back to that and see kind of what are other people saying. But I would also agree that like the ones that I have joined, it's really nice to have a safe space of. We're all doing the same thing. We all have similar challenges, and it's nice to either A, not feel alone, or B, learn some new ways to think about things that you may have not been thinking about in that certain way. So I'm definitely loving it.
That's awesome. Melissa,
I was going to say, I love the Slack channel, actually. I am obsessed with Slack. I don't know what happened. Like last year, I was like, I hate Slack. It was the worst thing in the world. And now all of a sudden I'm obsessed with it. But I love the channel in addition to the emails. I think sometimes I've always gotten a response when I need something. I feel like there's always a huddler there to help. And it's different than some more of the open groups that there are, because like we have a cybersecurity society, which is amazing. And I love it. My team's in it. They're amazing. They get engaged in it, but I can't sometimes ask more of those, closed questions where I need that safe space. So I love that term safe space, and that's really what that Slack channel gives to me. So it's a really great group. I love the different ways of communication as well.
Thank you all for those. We just happen to have some recorded comments from some other huddlers to play while we go grab our gin and our chill glasses. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back to have a very short gin tasting.
I love the way that you are able to bring together experts and practitioners to share their experiences and to accelerate learning.
Just by listening, I've tripled my experience.
It's a great way to have these conversations with your peers.
Even if you miss, an actual live session, just the capture you guys do of the notes, the tidbits, the takeaways, just super valuable.
It's such a nice forum to be able to bond with other marketing leaders that are facing the same things that you are.
There's just so much goodness from the learnings and the dialogue and everything else.
So it's really nice to connect to peers that are B2B.
The Slack channel, I think, is amazing. There's just some really helpful ideas and thoughts and things being shared in there as a backstop underneath the Huddle actual meetings.
Because of the format of the CMO Huddles, there's, maybe 10, 15 people on each of the sub-peer groups, which makes it really easy to build one-on-one relationships.
It's a community that I think I really needed right now, so thank you.
If you're a B2B CMO who can share, care, and dare with the best of them, ping me, Drew Neiser, on LinkedIn or apply at cmohuddles.com. Okay, we're back, and Melissa, our producer, is joining us. Melissa, what are we tasting today? You're on mute.
Got it. We're having a taste off today between Malfi and New Amsterdam gin. This Malfi we're going to taste first. It's our first ever Italian gin that we'll be having on the show, which we've never done before. So go ahead and pour it. I'll just give you a few quick facts. It's distilled in Italy by the Vergnano family, and they've been distilling since the 1970s. And it's the first Italian gin to be distributed in the US. It's super juniper forward. So this is the most juniper gin I've read about that we've had on the show. What do you think of the taste?
Well, I'm going to jump in because it's funny. This is the first time I've had it in a chilled glass, straight up. And I find it really smooth, and the citrus is incredibly forward too. I mean, and I think it balances out that sort of hard juniper thing going on. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I find it's nice to be drinking out of a glass when usually I'm just drinking out of my coffee mug. Thank you for that opportunity.
Not to mention that it's noon Eastern time.
Yeah.
There's that. Anybody else have a comment on Malfi?
I think it's delicious. I don't generally drink liquor straight up, but it is. I feel the citrus. I think you were saying. I feel that as it's slowly going down, and it doesn't burn, so that's a good thing too.
Yeah, that's one thing that helps by having it really cold. Is that it does definitely take some of the alcoholishness of these things. Okay.
So let's move on to the New Amsterdam gin. They just recently rebranded, and it's called the Stratosphere gin. I couldn't figure out why, but whatever. They're distilled by Ian J. Gallo in Modesto, California since 2008. And while the New Amsterdam is really known for its vodka, the gin actually came first. So this is a very citrus forward gin. It's like got a lot of orange and lime flavors to it. Can you taste the difference?
Yeah. Wow.
It's stronger.
It's more like a breakfast gin.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think I like that. I like that one a lot.
Great. Okay, so let's do a vote. Put your hand up if you think Malfi's the best or New Amsterdam. So we'll start with Malfi. Hands up.
I think I'll go with Malfi.
All right. And New Amsterdam.
Interesting.
Alrighty.
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, Drew,
I tasted it. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it feels a little smoother for some reason. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's no mystery that juniper is what makes gin, but Malfi's juniper pays homage to a very specific juniper berry. I'm going to bring Nicole, our botanical expert, on, and she'll give you a quick fact about it.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Hello, Nicole.
Yeah, so despite the popular belief that gin originated in 17th century Holland, Italian monks were distilling juniper-based spirits as far back as 1050. And the Italian juniper berries are small, higher grade berries, and they have a more complex flavor, fruity flavor, compared to the juniper berries from the Eastern Europe. And juniper is actually called ginepro in Italian.
There you
Oh.
go. All right. Who knew? So Malfi has a long heritage, even though it didn't win in our taste test today. All right, Nicole, thank you. See you later. All right. Melissa, anything
Back
else?
to the show?
Let's
Nope,
go back.
that's all good. I'll send you guys some recipes after the show.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the challenge of retention. I mean, we literally had a huddle yesterday where one of the CMOs shared that a person that they had worked with for like 11 years just left because they got a $70,000 increase in raise. And so it's just this reshuffling. And what was interesting is they were losing to large companies like AWS and Microsoft were just throwing money at people. So I'm wondering if anything that you all have tried has been working on the retention front.
I haven't personally, I haven't lost anyone for someone leaving for more money. I've lost people for them growing their careers and going to be CMOs. And so that to me is just joyous, and that's a happy thing. But as far as I'd say how I feel like I focus more on retention with the people is I do a lot of conversations around career development, around where we're at, where we're going to go. Just to be an open book about it and not have it be like, oh, we only talk about this once a quarter. I generally am pretty, I guess, just open with my direct reports and the people I'm at. I'm very authentic. I'm a feeler by nature. And so I just and I'm a chatter. I'm a chatty person as well. So, I like to build trust, but I also want to be my authentic self. And I think that sometimes that works for organizations, and maybe that's worked for, me being able to retain some people who could easily leave and probably go make 70 grand somewhere else.
Well, and I do want to just make the point that if you can build a reputation as a CMO maker, that's a really good thing, because you're always going to be able to attract that layer right below you that wants to get groomed to be the next CMO. And I think there are a lot of those folks out there. James, or anything on your world that's kind of working from a retention standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So it's similar point, Jamie, right? The having folks leave to go take on, a bigger and better role. That's awesome, right? That's a high five moment. Folks, I'm kind of in a lucky position right now in that we have been re-engineering and rebuilding the marketing team here at Empyrean. So it's been more of an attraction than a retention. But I do agree with Jamie, your point there too, right? It's important for as a leader to have a very open and candid relationship with the folks on your team. I want to have those conversations, and I make it known I want to have those conversations. If you're feeling right that you're not connected, if you feel like you're not getting the growth that you need, or if you feel like you're undercompensated, right? So I try and give that space, right, for that conversation in one-on-ones. Not every one-on-one, but I kind of pick one, about sort of every month-ish kind of cadence to just ask and be open to that. And making sure, again, the other point on the microculture that we have and feeling connected to a mission, I think that's also critical, myself included, right, to keep everybody connected, engaged, and all working together for something, for a greater good.
Love it. Okay, Melissa, anything in retention that's sort of working for you?
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo what James said about that microculture. I think it's really interesting in terms of your team, and that's really what's helped retain us. And I actually just fell victim of someone, and it was literally $70,000 on a new hire that left for another role. She was only on board for 3 months, and to be honest, I don't think it was about money. We had overshot in the role; she was too senior for it, and it was a lesson that I had. But at the same time, she did fill a gap for me. We had a huge gap in comms. She got a lot done in 3 months, and now actually I don't have to backfill that position for another 3. So for me, it kind of worked out. But the rest of my team is the retention, and what Jamie said, it's that vulnerability and the authenticity. The team understands. It's always explaining why. If a goal's changing, one of the things that our team always faces, they're like, well, why are the revenue targets changing in Q3? And explaining, well, if we missed, a quarter, not that we're missing, but if if we did miss, this is why this is going to happen. And when we do achieve, really applauding the team's success. I'm really fortunate, really rock star team, and through my career I've had rock stars, and it's consistently just growing them and molding them as well, and giving them what they need and to really take that next step. So I love that Jamie has lost people for CMO roles. That's really cool. I haven't yet lost anyone to a CMO role, just VPs. So maybe a couple more years I'll have
There you
that.
go. Something to aspire to.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking about in all of this is how much work you all are doing in paying attention, all the one-on-ones that you're doing, all the career mapping, all the sort of thinking ahead and helping them feel like you're a person that does it. And so this is the moment in the show where we ask, what would Ben Franklin say? And I think he would applaud all of the hard work that you're doing with this expression. Industry pays debts while despair increases them. There's no point in whining about any of this. There's no point in saying it's all about what can you do right now to keep your employees happy, build those teams, get them together. We've heard a lot of that in our conversation today. Now, I want to flip it a little bit. And the flip side of retention is recruiting, right? Even if you keep all your people, we've all talked, you all have openings because you have new headcount that you're adding because your company is growing. So, and I literally, this just blew me away that the one CMO in a huddle, this was last week, made 3 offers. This was for a product marketing position. All 3 accepted, and then all 3 turned around and took better offers. So what's working in recruiting besides throwing money at candidates? And let's start with Melissa. Just come right back up.
Sorry, my internet just went out, so it's kind of messed all my camera.
Okay.
So I think I would go to someone else for the moment while I work through
We'll go to
technical
Jamie.
difficulties.
Jamie, what's working in recruiting?
It's a great question. It's almost a loaded question too, because I feel like for things that work, some things don't. For the VP role, so I have a VP role I just filled. I think it's more, I was very picky about that role. And so it was a very long, lengthy process, but it was around just really being kind of tight on exactly who was the right fit for the role for our company. Because a lot of people had the right title, but it was around being the right fit for our company. And I think that is, depending on the role for that VP role, it was more around, I had a very constant kind of communication with the right candidates throughout the whole entire process. So making sure that, even down to the point in the later stages, again, where it was made clear, like if we're going to have a text, is it okay if I text you? That came later on when I knew that I was down to my few 2 or 3. And I think as long as that was okay and that relationship was established, that helped. But I will say, I don't know if I even know what's working, Drew. I know that I went so far in this recruiting process. It's almost embarrassing, but it's such a funny story, that I sent someone an edible arrangement. I was like, what's that last mile thing I can do to say, we really want you? And I sent someone an edible arrangement. I mean, that is...
I think in this market, you really got to think about this like dating and
it's like dating.
It is. And what's going to move this relationship along? And edible fruit may have been the trick. That's hilarious. But I also heard you talk about hiring for culture fit, which I think is so interesting because that's so tricky today, because you want both culture fit, but you also want that person to bring something new to the culture. So that's tricky. Anyway, James, anything working for you in the recruiting area that you can add to this conversation?
Yeah, I'll pick up on the, haven't tried the edible arrangement, but I took that down as a note. I'll pick up on the culture bit there, because I always make sure with candidates that they understand, and I'm very clear, right, on the interview, that you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you, right? This is a two-way street, two-way dialogue. You really need to feel comfortable about this. So because we have spent so much time on our marketing team defining, as I mentioned earlier, what our microculture is, what our mission is, how we work, I tend to run through that, right, with a candidate, let them, feel comfortable with what they're going to be a part of, and see if they, how well they react to it, right? Are they going to like to be a part of, our merry marketing team, or are they, going to self-select out? So I think in the recruitment process, being very open, very honest with the candidate about the type of environment they're getting into. And then of course, being clear on what the role and the objectives and all of that is critical. But that I have found has both helped to get the right candidate, right, as well as make sure that those self-select out the ones that are like, nope, that's not for me.
Right. Okay. All right. So, Jamie, we seem to have lost Melissa. So give us, if I could give you, Melissa, you're back. Maybe. I think she's back. I'm ready to ask you a question, Melissa, if you're back. It's a live show, folks. These things happen. All right. So, and let's go to this. I'm going to give you a magic wand, Jamie. Budget's not an issue. What's your next hire in, an area where you go, that would really be awesome if I could get that?
Multiple field marketers.
Okay. And why?
I would say that's the area where we're just, because we with our business, very strong enterprise motion, we have a really great sales and channel, and then marketing's been kind of supporting. And I feel like we might be a little thin in areas. And if we had a couple more field marketers in specific regions, I know it's probably not traditional to what people would say. I feel like that would have a little bit more connection on some of our markets where we're trying to put resources where there's just not a lot of resources now.
Right.
So that's my personal need. And
let me ask you this, because we were talking about this, we were talking about it yesterday in a huddle about that that field marketing and used to be sort of like kind of somewhere between a salesperson and an event person. And now they really need to be marketers. And I'm curious, so what is that role? What are they supposed to be doing for you?
Our field marketers are basically forming relationships with anyone from sales to SDRs to running events to running programs to running syndication programs. They're very much holistically figuring out how do they put on an event, but how do they, even if it's an event that's gone, that's already passed, how are we promoting that in other ways? How are we engaging the channel team? So I think it's very much becomes a more robust role for us within sales with channel, but also bringing that back into programs for that market, for that specific market that they're in.
Okay. All right. Well, we are running very close, late in the hour. So James, give us one tip for your fellow CMOs on building a strong or stronger marketing team.
Yeah, sure. I'd say, let each of especially your directs, right? Let them drive their own destiny. Help them, right, to create and define what that journey is. But make sure that you're giving them the support that they need. Let them sometimes make mistakes if they do, but make sure everybody feels on your team that they are running their show. And when you have that kind of attitude as a manager, you'll find that your team always steps up and is grateful for the chance to thrive on their own.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when we go back to the very early part of your conversation where you have 7 direct reports, the only way that's going to work is if they really are good at what they do and they can make their own destiny. So that's you've closed the loop for me. So I love that. And Jamie, give us one tip for your fellow CMOs on building a stronger marketing team.
I would say just making sure that you're investing in time to understand the different personalities and how everyone is interwoven and, what are everyone's goals on the team. And so that everyone's clear that just because I have a goal to be X, my counterpart might not have that same goal in their role to be the same at the same level or have the same promotion, but it's understanding what everyone, their value to the team. And I think that's more of outside of focusing on what initiatives are we driving this week, this month, this quarter. This is more of taking a step back and saying, hey, I want to spend time on really making sure that we understand each other as teammates beyond, more in an empathetic way. And so I think that has worked very well for myself and our team. And I would highly recommend that people invest creating that space and time to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny. We got to almost the end of the hour, and the word empathy, which I think has been such an important part of pandemic leadership. And I remember early on a CMO saying, "Oh God, I really have to be empathetic now." And I suspect you always had to be, but never before has that skill been tested in our world of just being empathetic. That's sort of number one. Number two, what we heard a lot of conversation today is about, it's not just about getting stuff done. It's about making sure that everybody shares the values and feels commitment to something bigger than we got another couple leads into the pipeline. So, all right, with that, I want to thank Melissa Goldberger, whose internet sort of failed her at the last minute. James, Jamie, you're great sports. Thank you to the audience for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we'll be talking about brand refresh with some amazing CMOs. And with that, Melissa, cue the music. Renegade Marketers Live is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our intern is Laura Parkin. Our botanical expert is Nicole Hernandez. For show notes, past episodes, and the latest on my new book, Renegade Marketing 12 Steps to Building Unbeatable B2B Brands, please visit renegade.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.